Does It Make a Sound? The podcast where we ask if an indie band pours their heart and soul into making a record, but nobody's around to hear it. Does it make a sound? I'm your host, Dustin Owens, and I'm joined by my fellow Renaissance men and Fall Down Trees bandmates Porkchop Branch and Nolin McAlister.
Hey.
How you doing today, fellers?
How you doing?
Great.
In this first season of Does It Make a Sound, we're going through our debut album, Night Terrors, with one song per episode, and this is episode 9, A Work Grotesque.
Number nine.
If you'd done it 3 times, I would have been worried about a copyright infringement
I
case.
stopped
but
short.
I think 3. I think 2 was the limit there. I think
He's a professional.
You know how to illegally get stuff on the radio, Porkchop?
That's exactly right.
Let's cut that joke. We don't need that floating around for the FCC to hear. All right, so go listen to Night Terrors. It's on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, Tidal, anywhere else you can find music where corporations make tons of money and artists don't make anything. We're in all of those places. If you haven't listened to the other episodes in Season 1, we do recommend starting with Episode 1, Hand of God, and then go through all 9 episodes, and there's going to be one more after this. By a running count, we should be at about 18 hours by now, so... Make sure to like and subscribe to Does It Make a Sound? And please review the podcast. Let us know what you think about it. We do appreciate it. Reviews help us with the algorithm. Follow Fall Down Trees on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. For feedback, you can message our socials or you can email us at falldowntrees@gmail.com. This show, just like our music, is a constant work in progress, and we do welcome constructive feedback, and we do laugh when you make fun of us. We're proud partners with Guttersville Records. Cowlick Moon's Shit Kicker is available now. Have you guys listened to it yet?
I'm doing sound effects for you.
Yeah, I want to hear the sound of shit kicking. Can you do that one?
I was literally just about to kick chop, but
so the record is really good. Super proud of Seth. The songs are fantastic. They're catchy. I catch my kids like singing them in the back of the car, like listening to it going down the road, which, just like with our music, isn't always appropriate, but whatever. By the time they understand it, they'll be old enough to understand it. That's my philosophy on those things. But it is really good. I am featured on a couple of songs, proud moments for me. Anyway, I'm playing harmonica on 2, and I sing backing vocals on those 2 as well. Pretty different, but go through, listen to the record, see if you can pick out the harmonica parts, and you'll be better for listening to the whole thing anyway. Coming up June 27th, Biscuit's Southern Pine Feel Good Vibes is coming too. I worked with Biscuit on a tune here recently. It's called Homeland Park Nights, going back to my old radio station days. And so I don't know if that's on the record or if it's going to be a single and then just the instrumental version of that will be on the record. But make sure to follow all of Brandon Biscuit Hammond's music pages and everything, and keep up. That one's going to be really solid too. I've heard some of those initial tracks. It's like a mix between beats and electronics, and then there's some songs on there that do have vocal takes as well. So really cool stuff coming out of Guttersville. Make sure to go and follow and listen to the Does It Make a Sound playlist on Spotify. I think at this point I have set it up for at least the first 2 to 3 episodes. I blamed it on Nolin a couple of weeks ago, and then he actually got me the songs, and then I never put them on the playlist. But we're trying really hard, and we expect folks to listen after we've actually completed all of these things.
Don't believe me.
So go find the Does It Make a Sound playlist on Spotify, and there you will find all of the music that we mention over the course of the episode. That's not our music, therefore we can't legally play it on the show.
Yeah.
You will find all of those songs there. We figured most people listening, you may be familiar with everybody. You may only be familiar with half, and you may not be familiar with any of the stuff we're talking about. So that gives you a good resource to get a little more context. And we'll also have links in the show notes for anything else that matters.
That's pertinent,
I guess. All right, so this is a Work Grotesque, and like my notes say, it says it's the setting sun, but we've already done that one. This is the 9th song on the album, and it is the 9th song that we recorded for the album. Work Grotesque was also considered for an album title for this record, but also it was like a title that I had considered for several different albums through the years. As I've been doing this podcast, I've been digging through all of these archives, and I call them archives, but really it's just a random smattering of folders when I filled up all of the space on a phone or a digital recorder, and I just had to dump a bunch of files to make more space. I found all kinds of stuff. There's several times that I have made demos and collections for albums that I wanted to record, and very often a Work Grotesque has been thrown around as a title for one of those records. This is the last song on the album that features the entire band.
Oh wow!
Isn't that? It's kind of bittersweet.
Yeah.
We've reached that part of the podcast.
Do we have to come for the next episode?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you don't. Nolan has a.
Yeah.
I wasn't gonna single you out, but Nolan does have a sax solo. So really, it's only you that we didn't.
Son of a bitch!
I'll be here.
I knew the answer to that question.
We probably will have a couple of special guests join us for
Yeah.
the episode, though, so that'll be fun.
Those are the best ones.
Those are the best ones. The Modern Prometheus is our most listened to episode,
Yes.
and I think the majority of folks just keep listening to their interview over and over again. I'm not going to name any names, but they're kin to me.
Yeah.
Shell Spider. Go ahead and download it on all
That's right.
streaming platforms.
Spider with a shell. I think this song, A Work Grotesque, is probably the most representative of what we sound like or what we have sounded like as a band. Even considering the keyboards tinkling away in the background, like the way this is, I mean, there's a reason for that. It's a song that we've played with bands.
Yeah.
But I think just like the bass, the drums, the acoustic guitar, finger picked, and the saxophone is the core of the tune, and that's pretty much what we bring to music. And I think that really stands out in this song.
I could tell you a little bit more about that. Like, this is one of those songs we've been playing for a good while, right?
Oh yeah, I'll definitely get to that. I've got all kinds of dates coming up here for you.
I'll chime in.
In the context of the album, it takes place like right before sunrise, right? So it really is. It's kind of the. We've mentioned Hand to God and Pegasus are kind of like intro and outro songs that lead to this night in the shed. And so that would make this really the end of the night in the shed, right before sunrise. It's the point where the character and the album kind of come back to earth too, right? Like it's all been so internal and in the character's mind throughout, and this is the song where everything kind of becomes a little more rational, I guess. Thematically, you've got these ideas of God and fate and nature versus nurture that have popped up all throughout the album, right? Like these little things that appear in all of these different songs in all of these different contexts, and this is where you kind of get all of those ideas resolved in the final act of our album play here. So I finished writing this song in September of 2012.
Wow.
So that's how old this one is. By
Damn.
my calculations, that's pushing 13 years at this point in time.
Yeah.
It is the oldest song that's on this record. We talked about this a little bit last week. This song kind of started the new era, right? It was like one of the songs that defined this new era of the way that I was writing, and my bands. You know, I was kind of going through these band shifts and these band changes. I was writing music in a different. What are you eating? Potato chips? What are you doing over there?
Trying to get into his jerky. I'm trying to be quiet about it.
You're not doing a good job.
My bad.
So the music stuff, the way that I was writing songs really took a turn, and a lot of that was based on these big changes in my life. I obviously mentioned my grandpa passing away and my uncle, and then a relationship ending and new ones starting. So it was written just months before we found out that Emmy Lou was going to be born. So really, even though, and obviously, I'm sure that I've mentioned this over the course and mentioned it to everybody that I've ever talked to post Emmy Lou being born, but her being born is the most defining moment like in my life for who I am and my personality and the way that I look at the world and everything. Like I completely changed. I went from just an absolute just shithead to a person with purpose and drive and vision and not success, but outside of that, I got all of those other things.
Bro, I understand.
Also, like hope and a level of like love and things that I had never like felt or experienced or thought I could experience before. And one thing that kind of stands out to me, knowing that this came from right before that, is maybe I was heading in that direction anyway. Right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of, I mean, it makes me feel good to kind of think about it, but I don't know that I would have landed where I did land. And or maybe it would have taken a whole lot longer if I hadn't just been like shocked. Something about having a kid really brings you into the world. You're born in a way too, you know?
It shocks the system.
That's right. Yeah, it may have taken another 10 years for me to reach the level that I had to reach, you know, kind of overnight. But anyway, obviously, just it's this defining moment, and this is kind of the beginning of that era. Musically, it's the beginning of the Porkchop and Nolin era. So this would be right around the time that we all started playing together.
That's a good era.
I know that we hired Nolin for the Tom Waits cover show at Tavern Under the Bridge, the Glitter and Doom show. That was Halloween of 2013. So we would have played for a couple of months before that Halloween. So right around the time Emmy Lou was born, right? That show is still the greatest live show that I've ever played, and musically like changed and defined a direction that we were heading.
Yeah, I remember when you sent me that voicemail. And I was like, oh, someone's sending me a voicemail. It must be serious. And then, you know, you sent me a very professional, like, serious voicemail. Like, hey, this is Dustin Owens from Mama Spider Hatchery.
I probably called myself the founder and CEO.
Yeah, you probably said something weird like that. I'm doing this Tom Waits show. We need some horn players. Let me know if you're interested. And then the moment I met you, it's like, this motherfucker is as dumb as I am.
Yeah, I always try to. In my mind, I know that I should try to be underestimated, but that's not the way I put on the show, unfortunately. And look, that voicemail led to one of the longest relationships of my life, exactly. And the most fruitful relationships
you
of my
never
life.
know. Every view counts.
That's exactly right. You gotta, as Ron Swanson famously said, like, I don't half-ass anything, I whole-ass everything.
Yeah, exactly.
That is my whole approach.
Let's
to
get
life.
it.
So anyway, the Porkchop and Nolin era. So that was Halloween of 2013, and then Porkchop, you and I in the summer of 2013 wrote 1 and 18. Mm-hmm. So this would have been like, and this would have all happened like kind of right around the exact same time. And then you and I were in a band. Did we immediately call ourselves the First Amendment?
We worked on a name and pretty quickly called ourselves that, I think.
So that was just you and I, and then I was playing in the Hatchers band that became the Subterranean Five. So that was me and Nolin, post Tom Waits show, with Scott Glenn on drums, Seth Hardy on bass, and Joe Osborne on the guitar. So that band, the point of that band, they didn't want to use my band name it was a coup, like it was a mutiny. All right, they didn't want to use my band name anymore. So they said that we wanted to create a new band with an existing framework. So we had hired Joe and Nolin to come in for the Tom Waits gig, and then we were going to bring them into the band full time with me and Scott and Seth. And so this was going to be a democracy. This band was going to operate as a democracy, 3 songwriters, each bringing an equal number and singing an equal number of songs.
How'd that work out?
It did not work out. I was very grumpy most of the time, and we had no direction.
I'm surprised by that.
Yeah, I remember very specifically the first practice. Each of the 3 songwriters was going to bring their batch of songs. I think I had 10, and the other guys had, I think Seth had 1 and Joe had 1.5. And from there, I will say I'm being tongue in cheek. Love those guys. That was really one of the most talented and like fun bands that I've ever played in.
I'm getting some craving for some crab rangoon.
That's right, Joe's Sexy Torture Basement Room. Man, when we like grooved, like it felt incredible. I'd never really experienced that before. We just didn't have like a driving force and a person that organized and kept everything moving in the right direction, like a leader.
Yeah.
But anyway, we played one gig. If I remember correctly, it was at a house party in Greenville.
Oh God.
And we showed up. We were the last band to play, and we started into Tom Waits's "Going Out West." Dun-na, 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 dun. The whole band's throbbing. I'm not even playing guitar. I got a harmonic in my hand. I'm at the front of the stage, like lead singer guy. Nolan's back there, just in this groove, wailing on the saxophone. We get about halfway through the first verse, and the cops showed up and just completely shut us down. We played one song, I think, is what we got through that night. Is that right, Nolan?
I'll tell you, it's so fucking weird how many times I've had the cops called on me.
Oh, that makes two of us, man.
For playing a
Being
saxophone.
loud.
No, just playing a saxophone. You think if you hear a saxophone, that's sweet, that's pretty.
Nope.
Call the cops
Call the
immediately.
cops.
Well, look, I'm gonna add in the only time we've had the cops called. In fact, I was reminiscing today about this. This is kind of ironic. I think it's the universe putting this together. Tugalo Holler, the group I play with, we were playing a bluegrass gospel festival to raise funds for missions at a Baptist church. And we cranked in, and apparently the neighbors did not like the sound, and the deputy showed up and told us we had to turn the bluegrass down.
Oh, man.
I mean, in a church parking lot where they're selling hot dogs and all this stuff.
You know what that means, though, right?
Is that whatever it is that makes me get the cops called on me all the time has bled into Porkchop, and he is now experiencing my same luck.
Yeah.
I think it's what it means.
No, what I think it means is turn it the fuck up.
There's a bass player, I can't remember who it was, that has a knob on his bass, and it's the recording engineer knob or whatever.
It's Leland Sklar.
Yeah, it doesn't go to anything.
Yeah, I need you to change that a little bit, and he just turns it. It's not connected to anything.
And it's always fine as soon as he's done.
Yeah, that's me as a sax player. Can you do this and that? Like it's
yeah,
sure.
Yeah, I can do that.
Can you turn the saxophone down?
No,
No.
I'm afraid not. Well, we could do a whole podcast on the number of times I've been kicked off the stage, and maybe we'll do that at some point in time because there's some really good stories in there, but I have to hold some kind of record. But anyway, back to the point at hand here. That means that all of the songs on this record are actually from the Nolin Porkchop era. So we had the two independently running bands, and then one of the bands, the Subterranean 5 band, fell apart, and we brought in Matt Myers on drums and brought Nolin in from the other band, and that's where Dustin Owens in the First Amendment like full band came from, which was really the beginning of the era. So all of the songs kind of hail from this era of my life, even though it is a significantly long era. One of the few songs that we would have at least tried to play in every iteration of any band since it was written is a Work Grotesque. Like, it works in a lot of different contexts, but mainly it's just really simple. And so it's one that anybody, we should be able to do it completely acoustic. We should be able to do it full band, with drums, without drums. Like, none of that really matters. And so I'm sure we've pulled this out in every iteration of anything. But not a lot of recordings exist before 2018. So the reason for this may be because we didn't have an easy access to recording until 2018. Getting good recordings on your phone was pretty impossible back then. So, I have stuff that we like set up recording equipment and did, but it's few and far between, unlike things that are a little bit more current. And this is one that hasn't really changed. It's been pretty much the same since the beginning. All right. Not a lot of clips in this show, so I'm just going to go ahead and play a full demo here from March of 2018.
I guarantee you hit the wrong note.
You're not on it. It's just me.
Okay.
So sit back and enjoy. You don't have to worry about it, Nolin. I'm going to do all the screwing up in this one.
Yes, sir.
Canvas white our maker made, heredity lends a tone of gray. Lessons learned determine shade. Canvas white our maker made. We take the brush in our hand. Some begin while some will plan. No tools to scrape or wash or sand. We take the brush in our hand. A stroke of love and one of hate. A stroke of luck and one of fate. A stroke to blend and one to cape. A stroke of love then one of hate. It's terrifying all the same. Better set in stone and wet with paint. Boldest of our strokes of pride, and those we try so hard to hide.
All right, so from March of 2018, that was a demo of a Work Grotesque. I didn't play the whole thing. You get the gist, and you'll get the nice recorded version at the end. So, the arrangement and lyrics are all there as they would exist on the album recording. Like even at the end of the song, even though I didn't play it, maybe that's why I wanted to play the whole thing. I don't know, but even the final breath is there,
breath,
and I think that was there from the beginning. To be perfectly honest with you,
Some foreshadowing.
it really is one of those songs though that like. You know, I've kind of talked about like some of them we whittle away at and work and change. This is one that like fell out of the sky. I don't really have a strong recollection of writing it at all, which is strange because it's a lot of song. Like you would think that something like this would stick in my head, and I don't really remember. I do think the jumping off point was this canvas white our maker made. And really, like with most songs, I kind of start with an idea anyway of what I want the song to be about, and then I'll match that with music. The general idea here is that life is like a painting, and we're judged by the results of the painting in the end. That isn't necessarily the greatest metaphor, but I feel like the depth that I take the metaphor is what kind of makes it stand out. Mm-hmm. I think this was a really big songwriting leap for me at this point in time too, for a lot of different reasons. And we've kind of talked about this era of music that this album comes from. Like this is really the shift where these songs have stuck around. Like we've played these for 15 years now, where a lot of the songs that came before this, you know, may have been okay songs, but didn't stand up as I progress as a musician. So I think this is kind of really where I hit my stride. Musically, it's all built on this 3-chord progression that repeats throughout the song, right? So it's sort of this circular progression. It's just 3 chords and it keeps moving and nothing changes. It's a very hypnotic thing. And kind of an exercise in simplicity. The finger picking is really basic. It's thumb, first finger, thumb, second finger on the bottom 4 strings of the guitar. It never moves strings, and it never changes. The way that my fingers are moving never change. I had no idea I had a finger pick at this point in time. So it was just notes that sort of sounded good to me, and it created a rhythm that I thought was really cool. And then I started working just over the top of that rhythm. And there's also a thing where the last note leads into the first note in a way that makes it feel like it keeps going in a circle, like a barbershop pole, which is a metaphor that I've used several times and have yet to perfectly metaphorize whatever it is I'm talking about. I'm struggling with it again. I'm never gonna say barbershop pole again in my life. Go,
I can help
Nolin,
you.
please.
So, like, with you guys, normally when we're trying to learn a song, I know my skills. Like, you tell me what key we're in, I'm good to go. You're like, I got you. I can do whatever you want me to do. With that, the notes that you play in this song isn't a scale. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So, with the scale, I don't have to think about it. You know, I know what notes to play.
You know where your finger, it's the muscle memory of your fingers too, right?
I have muscle memory. For like songs like this, I have to make a mental note. Don't play that note.
I see.
You know what I'm saying?
I do.
And so, like, when it, you know, da-da, da-da, da, da.
Right.
You
It's
know.
not your usual resolution.
Yeah,
place
exactly.
Right there, right?
So, like, learning this song, I don't know how many recordings you got of it, but, like, I've messed that up a bunch.
Yeah, I did, and usually the way it goes, Nolan, I didn't pick on you in this episode. Maybe I should have pulled one out for this very example. But usually it's just the first verse, right?
Yeah.
And I can always hear you like trying to find your way back around to where it is in the first verse. Now we should say this like a thousand times over. This is a momentary blip of Nolan's playing. Whereas if it's me or Porkchop that can't remember how a song goes, it may be we may not get it till the next practice.
Yeah.
Nolan figures it out pretty quick.
Yeah, Nolan has a course correction, whereas you and I are lost without a map.
Yeah, we all just look at each other like, what was that chord again?
Yeah.
Where is that supposed
What
to go?
key are we in?
We're the hikers.
Do you have a capo on your guitar?
We're the hikers lost in the mountains. They have to send a helicopter out for to get because we don't know where we're at.
Yeah.
But there's definitely, I never really realized that, but there's definitely a way that you feel your way through the beginning of this song. Now, that doesn't happen once it's in regular rotation, right? Like, once you're playing it, you're on it. But anytime where we've had to, like, learn the song or we're listening to, like, early practice versions of us, like, working it out,
Yeah.
I could definitely hear that in your playing and how you're working your way into the song. Melodically, like for me too, and I think this is interesting, and I think it ties into what you're saying there. Like, I feel like this is a melodic. I think that's the biggest change here from the songs that I wrote before this. Is before this, I was very much like a talk singer, right? Like,
Yeah.
I didn't really I still don't have a ton of confidence in my voice. I just care. I care less now.
Yeah.
So it just
Somebody out there gonna like it.
yeah, it doesn't bother me at all, and I just put my guts into it. But I've never had very much confidence in my voice, and especially and for good reason. I think for most of my for most of my life, and so when I would sing and when I would write songs, you learn to write songs for the way that you want to sing them, right? You want to write songs that work for you. And so if talk singing worked for me, most of my songs, sort of a Bob Dylan, John Prine-ish sort of style. But even when I had like moving melodies in the songs, they followed the chord progressions. And a lot of that was because I didn't know where the note was just to sing the note. I need to have that ear reference to the chord in the background.
Yeah.
And when I have the ear reference, I'm just going to kind of match that note and sing on that.
Exactly how I am.
Yeah, and so as I've gotten to be a better singer and I'm more used to singing in different keys and all of that, now I know my do re mi's. Like I can sing a scale. And so now when I write a song, I can hold a chord and move the melody and sing that scale in that chord to come up with a new melody. I didn't have this ability back then. And so with this song, there's this moving like chord progression, and then I come up with this melody that it works sort of independent of the chord changes and the chord progression, and it moves sort of over and around the chords. And I guess my ignorance is probably what let me come up with if I could, just like with the finger picking, if I could sing a scale now like I can now, and I was writing that song, I may have done something completely different or more complex or less complex or whatever because I knew where the notes were. But in this instance, I don't know where the notes are, and so I just stumble on what I stumble on.
Yeah, and that's one of the big reasons why I don't listen to like new pop music. Because I know exactly where it's going.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
That's right. There's a level of creativity that comes with amateurism, right? Like there's a level of
ignorance.
That's right. That I'm leaning more on my creativity than I am on my knowledge.
Yeah, exactly.
And now I almost like go in the opposite direction of that, where I use my knowledge to push creatively, right? Like the song I just played you guys a song earlier that is going to be like 4 albums from now, but it's a song I wrote the lyrics for it before a Work Grotesque. Like the lyrics are older than this. They date back to like 2010, 2011. And but I'm writing new music to the lyrics. And what I did there was I came up with a melody to match the music before I ever wrote chords. And then I started writing chords for the song to match the melody. And I realized I can sing this exact same note, and if I play a C under it, and if I play an A under it, and if I play an A minor under it, that same note that I'm singing has an entirely different feel.
Yes.
And so I don't know what the music's going to sound like when you strum those chords together, but I know how the melody is interacting with the chords in a way that I used to not to.
Yeah, and that's the thing about writing music. You can have all the education in the world.
That's right.
And when you feel something, you're probably right.
That's exactly right. You go with your gut.
Yes,
and
sir.
look, like the rules tell me, going back to that song that I was just recently writing, like the rules tell me what chords are supposed to be in that song. And I used to not know those rules.
Yeah.
And when I wrote a lot of songs, this song, I didn't know those rules. But now I know those rules, but it doesn't matter because I played the rules and then I immediately started putting chords in there that weren't supposed to be in there to see how they would interact with the other chords. Because just like you were saying, pop music's all about being smooth, sugary, sweet, easy to process.
Yes, sir.
But for me, if I want a little drama in a song, throw a chord in there with some dissonance.
Yes, sir.
And all of a sudden it grabs your attention. All right, anyway. The other cool thing here is when you go to the chorus, nothing changes in the music. It's still just the same hypnotic thing that's going on. But I change where I start singing the line, and then I change the melody because the chords are changing in different places, and it sounds like a traditional chorus would sound, where the music would change too. But it's really just the melody of the song that changes. Each of the verses is a 4-line stanza, and it has an AAAA rhyme scheme. Am I boring you, Nolin? Are you groaning in the microphone?
I was looking at it. But yeah,
AAAA rhyme scheme.
Yeah, I took history in English in high school.
So the last line, so usually you're gonna have different rhymes. It'll be A B A B or A B C B or whatever. This one's AAAA, and the last line repeats the first line. And I think it's kind of a cool effect because it creates a circular pattern that's very similar to the circular pattern of the music. The first stanza, the idea, so a canvas white are maker made, heredity lends a tone of gray, lessons learned determine shade, a canvas white are maker made. So this white canvas is kind of the jumping off point for the song, and the reference of nature versus nurture again, right? Like coming back out of modern Prometheus, like that determines the color of the canvas, like the primer, like what's Bob Ross's? He puts it on the white, the paint that he puts on
I can't remember
the canvas
the name of it.
to make it wet, right? Like to get
make it
started with
wet.
the painting process.
Mm-hmm.
Something white, and he has like a gray one.
Canvas gray.
I can't remember. There's a bucket somewhere that I've got some oil paints in, but I don't know where it is. Anyway,
Dustin's basically the musician version of Bob Ross.
that's what I'm going for, the Bob Ross of Americana. So originally it said how we're raised determines shade. I think that lyric change is just easier phrasing, I guess, but that's what I'm going for. We're given a white canvas by the creator, and then nature and nurture give us the tint, give us the primer. The second stanza is when the painting begins, and this is when we take over, like as people, right? And we're responsible for the results. So essentially, we're controlling our destiny. Once the paint is on the canvas, there's no going back.
Yeah.
According to BobRoss.com,
There's one.
all of his base coats are just liquid white, liquid black.
Liquid white, that's all it's called, is liquid white?
Liquid white, yeah.
Well, that was very anticlimactic.
Yeah.
So the second stanza is where the painting begins. We take the brush in our hand, some will begin while some will plan. No tools to scrape or wash or sand. We take the brush in our hand. And so the big idea here is we're responsible for the results. We control our own destiny from this point on. Exactly. So we've got a canvas and we've got the primer, but everything else is up to us. Once the paint is on the canvas, also, there's no going back, right? No tools to scrape or wash or sand. Our past informs our future always. And that's like the real crux of this song, is this idea that everything is building on top of what's underneath it. As I said before, like a painting being a metaphor for life is kind of silly, because you think, well, you just paint, what it is you want. But when you start thinking about those layers and this building on it over time, I feel like that's kind of where the depth of it is. And obviously that idea is what carries the whole second verse of the song. In the third stanza, the love versus hate concept is representative of the album as a whole too. So a stroke of love, then one of hate, a stroke of luck, then one of fate, a stroke to thin, then one to cake, a stroke of love, then one of hate. So the flow of the songs over the course of the album and the emotions that are kind of projected in these songs also are sort of stacking up this way, right? And it's the overall feel of the record as a whole. There are a lot of these ups and downs over the course of the record, but the overall feeling of the album includes the ups and includes the downs, and each song is building off of the song that comes before it. It's building towards the final piece. Luck and fate being introduced as well, independent of those that begin and those that plan, right? So luck and fate are out of our control, but we're no less responsible for the results at the end. And, obviously some begin and some plan is more of an approach to life. I'm a planner. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, you're pretty anal.
This idea, there's a stroke to thin, then one to cake, mentioning before, like that you can't scrape, you can't wash, you can't sand. But that doesn't mean that everything is going to stand out forever, right? Even though the strokes are made and they will exist forever, these additional strokes, the additional actions that you take can work to either hide the previous strokes, so that can be a good or a bad thing, right? This new thing that I did hides the good, this new bad thing I did hides the good thing that I did previously, vice versa. So it can hide the previous ones, or to cake, it can build on top of the previous ones. I opened the door for somebody yesterday and I did it again today, and I'm layering up that goodwill on the face of this painting. All right. So, most of this album, there's a songwriting tool that I employed, not intentionally, because obviously I didn't write these songs for this album. I wrote them independently, but this is a thread that I've noticed while making this podcast, is the chorus reveals the terror that's in the song. The chorus is the thing that sort of brings it back around to what you're really worried about, right? And like we were talking about this with Deadbeat Dads, the verses are about the relationship, but when it gets to the chorus, it's telling you, like, think about the deadbeat dads, it's telling you what the real fear is, right? And this song isn't any different. Going into the chorus, it's terrifying all the same, better set in stone than wet with paint.
Yeah.
The boldest of our strokes of pride, and those we try so hard to hide. And I think, like, it's not the painting concept that worries the character, but that the paint is always wet, right? If our lives were predetermined, like this determinism idea, then none of it would matter at all, right? We wouldn't be responsible. It's almost a comforting thing. And I know we talked about this way, way up in the Modern Prometheus album, but the Sam Harris podcast idea that there's no such thing as free will, right? That nature and nurture are these things that create the person that we are, and we don't really have control about what's coming. Well, this is pushing against that idea that the paint is always wet and we're always building on these things, and we do have control. That can be a positive thing. Once again, like, there's still always time to change, but it's also a negative thing, is this thing that I did is always going to be there underneath the surface. As it stands, we don't know what the final result will be until the paint dries. Like, that's a huge thing. Will the lines that we're proud of stand out? Or will those lines that we regret make their way back to the surface to permanently mar our legacy, right? Will it bleed through in the end? All right, so going into the second verse, the painter uses color to represent the emotions and the resulting actions and how they influence the layers beneath and above them. So first it starts with envy. A patch of envy, hunter green. An off-white base turns verdigris. That's actually a change from the original lyrics. I think I say a base of white turns verdigris in the lyrics for the record.
Who doesn't want a green Bronco?
Absolutely, everybody. On a base of black, it can't be seen. A patch of envy, hunter green. So with a wider base, it's almost beautiful, right? Like you're envious, but with more pure intentions. It's a driving force it can be a driving force for good, but with bad intentions, it just adds to the darkness that's there. A line of fury, ember red, drips like the wound from which it bled. On black or white, it makes its bed. A line of fury, ember red. Dripping from wounds is
Yes.
that's my kind of songwriting right there. I love stuff like that. Just the visual nastiness of it. So red representing fury, and it's covering anything that it's painted over, right? Righteous fury is just as red as the less justifiable kind of fury, right? Which calls back to Night Terrors. Self-righteous fury leads to moral defeat, I think is the line in that song. And then blue comes in, obviously representing despair. A deep despair of darkest blue, the brightest colors it consumes, but it will dry a lighter hue, the deep despair of darkest blue. Let's see, that's a little different on the record too. So maybe it's a good time to note, when I'm singing on the record, I'm not reading the lyrics while I'm doing it, right? And songs like this that I've been singing forever, these lyrics may have changed over the course of live shows, and I never even realized that I made the change just to make the phrasing better. So I think it's every color it consumes on the record.
Mm-hmm.
So this blue, this despair, it tints everything. Even in the best times, it's going to tint it that color of blue. But it dries lighter, and it fades with time. And even though it fades, it never goes away, but it does fade with time. All right, so then we go through the chorus again, and then the final verse is a single stanza, and it sort of wraps up the concept of the song. So the painting is sealed with death. When we draw our final breath, our life's work is sealed with death. A masterpiece or work grotesque when we draw our final breath. I wasn't familiar with the term work grotesque. That was not a thing that I knew anything about. And I remember, like, I had written this whole song, and I had this like verse at the very end, and I knew what I wanted. It's like, what's the opposite of a masterpiece? I don't need it to rhyme. I don't need it to do anything right there. What's the opposite of a masterpiece? And so I Googled it, and I get a work grotesque, and my mind just like explodes, right? Like that's more than anything anybody could ever ask for. Like, what a beautiful phrase.
Yeah. We're all a work grotesque.
Isn't that right?
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And we're all a masterpiece.
Yeah.
A work grotesque can be a masterpiece.
Yeah. Somebody's going to like it. Whether you'll think you'll look at yourself in the mirror and think, ugh, what a work grotesque. And somebody will look at it and be like,
man, I went to an Andy Warhol exhibit one time. I think it was in Nashville. And they had all kinds of other pop art that was everywhere. And, not everywhere, but that was in the, like, Andy Warhol was the draw, but it was other pop art.
You would.
And there was this thing. It looked like a pig face mask, and it was like rusty iron and leather is what it was made out of.
Yeah.
And it was the ugliest thing. Like, the ugliest thing that I'd ever seen in my life, and I could not stop looking at it. Like, it mesmerized me. Like, I'd never seen anything like that.
That's basically
before.
me.
Yeah, that's you. That's when I think of Nolin, I think of rusted iron and leather pig mask. Of course not, Nolin. You're a beautiful man. But it did end up being one of my favorite song titles, and one of, obviously, like, I wanted to use it for an album. Like, it's something I really like it. There's kind of a pretentiousness to this song, like a highbrow sort of nature to it. maybe flowery is a better word. It's like, or poet, like almost like, I don't want to say forced, but kind of forced, like poeticness.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how to say it, but I don't know, like, that I really try to, like, it reminds me in the Bob Dylan movie, is he hanging out with Joan Baez and she wrote her own song, and Dylan tells her she's trying too hard.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's almost that, right? And I tend not to force things quite as hard as I used to, but hopefully the performance and, like, letting those lyrics breathe the way that they breathe over the course of a slower song, and just in general the authenticity of us as a band makes it hit home and feel real. But that's always been a thing kind of in the back of my mind, is like, this is a little more pretentious than I usually try to be when I write a song. And I can be a very wordy dude. I mean, honestly, this is how my mind works, right? Like, the references and the metaphors and, like, all of this associative thinking, like, anybody that sits down and has a conversation with me, like, that's where I go when I talk, right? Like, I know it's weird. People tell me that it's weird. It seems to either people think it like it or they don't. Like, it seems to be like a polarizing way of communicating with people. But overthinking things is definitely a way that I approach things in life. All right, so there was a final verse that ended up getting scrapped. A peeling collage of memories, a glimpse is all they'll ever see of all you are and hope to be, a peeling collage of memories. I know I scrapped it. It's not bad, but it's definitely not necessary for the song. And I think the first stanza, drawing the final breath, is a much better ending to the tune anyway.
Yeah, it helped me.
I don't think you need to, like, well, it's your final breath in the recording too, right? Like,
yeah,
you carry that out. So still, that idea that, like, a glimpse is all anybody will ever see of the painting, I think that's kind of a cool thought project with this song as well, right? Like, you don't know what point a person is going to get that glimpse of your painting, right? And they're not going to see all the layers. Only the closest people to you are going to see these changes over time, but most people only see what's right there on the surface. They don't know what's underneath that. They're not seeing every little detail. They're just seeing the overall impression. And so every moment of your life, in any interactions that you have with anybody, this presentation is how you're being judged, right? And I don't mean that like in a negative way, but like how you're viewed. How you're viewed. That's a much better way of putting it.
It's funny, we have never talked about this until now, but that's what I always got out of this song, is like, to the person that's painting, the person that is painting the picture, every color, no matter if it's dark or a lighter color or vibrant, it's bright, because they're putting it on. Right. If it's black, it's almost a bright black.
It stands out.
It stands out. But as you go through this song till the final breath, people, unless they were there with you, or in certain situations, this is what I thought about, someone who maybe somebody close to them, and they can tell them, hey, you know, this particular monumental thing happened in my life, maybe you didn't know about. That's what I thought about, is like, you can tell someone, hey, I used to do this, or
right,
I did this one time, and if they looked at you, they wouldn't know it. And that's what I always got out of it, is the painter is the one who knows every stroke,
all of the things. And if you think about it, like, going through the song, like, it's all about, like, how does the painting end up in the end, right? Like, you know, when you draw, our life's work is sealed. So this idea that you're working towards the final result, right? And it's sealed, and like, what is your legacy? Like, what will you leave in the end? But most people nobody sees that. Only you and whoever we sit before in judgment, right? Like, those are the only people that see the entire thing, the process from the beginning to the end, that understand the thing in its entirety and all of the depths that are there. And you know, it can lend a certain level of appreciation to it, or a certain level of disgust, right? When you're looking at it, and you hope nobody sees that scar. You hope nobody sees this thing. But really, it's those glimpses over time that people get of the painting that's wet, right? Of the work in progress. It's those glimpses and a combination of those that's what your legacy really is, not that final painting.
And that goes along with music too. I don't want to listen to someone that's 100% perfect. As musicians, we love those imperfections. We love to see them mess up.
That's right, and it makes the more beautiful notes stand out even more beautifully. And it's this song too, right? I mean, this album, like, I guess people are seeing the final painting, but the point of the podcast is to see those strokes as best as we can show them to you that were made along the way to get you to that final result. All right, so the thing that's scary, the fact that it's still changing, is also the thing that lends a hope to the song. So this is it can feel hopeless, it can feel sad. I think a lot of that is just me. That's like, it's like me personally, as I'm listening to this song, I'm like, man, like, all of these things are always going to be there, right? These strokes. But it's also it can be uplifting too. And I'd imagine a person that probably has a little bit more self-love than I have may think of all these things as beautiful things. But I think that is melancholy, right? Like those sad memories that you have that are also kind of happy memories. I talked about this, like the Christmas day when my grandpa died, and like staying at my grandma's house that afternoon, and it was the saddest day ever, but it's also one of the Christmases I remember most fondly because everybody came to visit and we told these stories, and it was so full of love. And I think that's similar to what's here, right? Like there's a balance of this sad and this sort of hopeful nature, and both of those things I think can exist at once, right? And maybe melancholy is the right word, I hope.
Yeah, that's absolutely the right word.
It's an interesting song in a live context too. Like most of our performances, it just gets completely lost, right? Like we've talked about this a lot, but you kind of have to have night terrors in there to draw people's attention, or songs that people recognize or whatever. And I think so much of the music that's the best music that we do is slower and airier and melodic, and Nolin's like performances on the sax really stand out. And like I think the beauty of what we do, some of the favorite stuff that we do is that, and that's something that I think just does not come across well unless you have a captive audience, right? It easily turns into background music. It's like because of sort of the smoothness of it all. But with a captive audience, this song has always gotten a great response. Like the lyrical compliments, vocal compliments. I remember Scott telling me after I played it for him one time, he was like, man, that's like, let's keep doing that one. That's the best song you sing. And Scott never compliments anything. So, just getting that from Scott, I was like, man, I must do all right, I remember this one time playing this song at Merck Mountain, though, and this is such a special memory. You weren't there for this one. So we did play it at Merck Mountain, and you were there, and it was beautiful. But I think this might have been like, I played one year solo. Yeah. I don't remember.
Yeah.
And it was in the middle of the afternoon, and the sun was like shining down through the trees, and everybody was sitting like right in front of the stage. Must have been one of the first years. Like there weren't many people there, and it was real sort of quiet. And everybody was sitting on blankets right at the front of the stage. And I'm singing this song, and it's got this hypnotic vibe. And everybody has their heads leaned back and their eyes closed and the sun on their face. And we're just completely locked in and like lost in the tune. And that's one of my, like, I have a handful of live moments like that, like these very specific things that happen that just hit me. And that's one of the most special live moments, was during a Work Grotesque, like watching people like really listening and really like letting the music wash over them. And I'd love to play for more audiences like that. And if we did like play it would lean much more in this direction, I think. I do have a live version here if y'all want to hear it. This is from Summerfest, which I did not write down what Summerfest was. In context, I think it was at the local Uptown here in Anderson.
Oh, yeah.
Was part of an art show.
Was I there?
Yeah, I think so.
Is it?
Yeah, you were there for sure, but I think it was part of an art show. Matt's on drums. This is July of 2018.
Is Trevor on bass?
I don't know. I guess we'll have to let Porkchop tell us that. Let's play it, and we'll figure it out. This is from July 17th of 2018. I think we were called Woolly Boogers at the time. Summerfest. This is of a Work Grotesque.
Canvas white or maker made, red or teal lends a tone of gray. Lessons learned determine shade. Canvas white or maker made. Take the brush in our hand. Some begin while some will plan. No tools to scrape or wash or sand. We take the brush in our hand. A stroke of love, then one of hate. A stroke of luck, then one of fate. A stroke to blend, then one to cave. A stroke of love, then one of fate. It's terrifying, all the same. Better set in stone than wet with paint. The boldest of our strokes of pride, and those we try so hard to hide.
All right, that was from Summerfest of 2018. So I can hear you, like in the beginning there, like you just avoid the resolve note. Like you just let it. You
Well,
don't
the crazy
actually
thing
hit
about
it.
the song that it isn't really one.
That's right. Like it just starts the next line.
Yeah,
right? Like
exactly.
it never lets you resolve.
And I'm playing the bass on there.
That is definitely Porkchop.
He has no clue what key we're in.
No, never do.
That is I love that sliding upright line, that thing that you did on this song when you played it on the upright bass.
I don't remember how we came up with that because
I think you just did it.
when we first started playing this, because I remember you and I were just playing, and we started working on it as a duo, and because I didn't have that slide in mind, if I remember correctly, a lot of times you would take that and do like a solo set in the middle of our show set.
I definitely did that.
Because I was just playing root notes,
Mm-hmm.
and it sounded very boring. It didn't move at all.
Right.
And
It took away from the thing that Nolin and I are talking about, where there's not like a natural resolution. Like
Right.
it squared it up a little
right,
bit.
exactly. And I don't remember what year we came up with that, and I think I was just messing around.
I know exactly.
Well, it was before July of 2018.
Well, I was talking to Chop. Y'all both know my background with like, music and symphonies and stuff. I was like, Chop, do you have a bow?
That's right. Yeah, we did play around with that bow a good bit. So you think the bow is what led to the sliding
I think
bass
he's
line?
right.
That may be true. We threw the bow on a ton of stuff there for a while.
And the bow on this song, because you're jumping up on an octave.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a traditional bow player. It's something that I really don't know how to do, and it didn't sound quite right. And I think that led to me figuring out,
Well, it's definitely slippy and slidey. I really like that. The sax, like weaving in and around the vocals, is really cool. I love when Nolin plays like that. And that was a lot of the way that you played early on, just because you played sax on every song and you had to create these textures.
Yeah,
it wasn't always a solo.
I didn't know what else to do. People hit me up. You want to come play? I don't know what you want from me.
Well, it definitely adds a nice, like, smoky texture to the tune. I also found this clip at the very end of that recording. That one's called A Work Grotesque. It's the title track of our upcoming first record. You can buy a poster for it right here in front of the stage if you want to. They're right here in my guitar case. I made posters. I was really confident about that first record that was coming out, wasn't I? It only took 8 more years, had a different title, did not use the same artwork. People may have seen we call them the fire monsters, me and the kids.
Yeah.
That's one of the little paintings I did with them years ago that's kind of become a, I don't know, it's never like really been anything, but it is something that I've like threatened to use over and over and over again. So anyway, I thought that was hilarious. I thought it was hilarious that I made posters before we even had an album to put out. I guess I really like the artwork. I should make some Night Tears posters, I guess. I don't know. We are working on a vinyl release, so maybe I'll make that when I'm doing all of that artwork and setting up the liner notes and everything for the vinyl. That I might make some posters that we can put out there for people to snag too. But yeah, real confident that we had an album coming out. 7 years ago, 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Another thing that I discovered when I was listening to some of these tracks is there was a time that Nolin played around with some keys on this tune too. So this is from a band practice, May of 2019. I like that bass line. Trying all kinds of stuff.
That
there,
had a really different sound, man, almost like jazz.
It was a lot going on there.
Yeah, that last part was kind of sweet.
Yeah, we were finding stuff in there along the way. Something else is in there. I know you're playing keys and you're using a piano sound, but did Matt have bells or something? It almost sounds like there's some bells or something in the background that are.
Matt had a wordlesser, like that organ I played.
Yeah,
and it had like kind of like a gas pedal, like you're a guitar player.
Yeah, volume.
Yeah, so like that's when you hit organ, it's just loud or not.
Not loud.
You got to use your foot to control that.
Yeah, it doesn't have like the weighted keys where you can mash harder or something.
Yeah, like a piano, like a real good piano or like a keyboard like that. You can, the harder you push, the louder it gets.
Mm-hmm.
But like the little one, like keyboards, it's just that volume.
Well, there's some sort of tinkling, like something like that going on in the background. Maybe that was you.
That's just my brain.
Yeah, well, good job, man. I thought there was definitely some interesting spots, but you can also tell we're figuring it out. I love the part in the beginning where I say, I really like that bass line, and John says, I don't know what I did. I think that sums up how we operate, like, to a T. Right
I need a T-shirt with that on it.
Yeah,
I don't know what I did.
I don't know what I did.
What key we in?
And as everybody else is screwing up along the way, apparently I don't remember the lyrics either. I thought my do like da da da.
Maybe that's why
really
I thought
nice.
it was jazz. You were scatting.
Started scatting over the song.
He turned into Louis.
It does miss the sax. The arrangement pretty much stayed the same all the way to the recording of the album. This was the only instance I found that it was anything other than the way it ended up being. It's definitely the most road-worn song on the record.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the reasons it ends up having more of like a live sound than the rest of the album does. It sounds more like a band playing in the room, right? And I think that's just because we've played it live so much, we know where to sit on the beat, right? Like even when we're playing not at the same time, the whole record, it's a click track and one instrument recorded at a time. And a lot of times that leads these songs to, and with a lot of the songs, we're writing the parts, in the studio. So, Porkchop's writing the bass part based on the guitar part and the drum part that already exist in the background. Or I'm writing a drum part based on a bass part or whatever. But this song, we all knew in our head what all of the other instruments were going to be doing already. And so we knew where to sit on the beat. And it really brought this song together in a way that sounds more like a band than I think most of the record does. I think because of this, like the fact that the song was worn in and we knew what we were doing, I was a pretty big slack ass getting the recording started. This is the only instance that I found in here where I did nothing before the day y'all were coming in to record. And on my lunch break at work, I decided I was going to sit down and try to record this. Also, this is late in the recording process, right? So at this point in time, I'm getting fatigued, right? Like it is the time and the energy that's going into this is starting to wear on me towards the end of the record. And there are a couple of things that happen over the course of this record that I think add to the way the album tells a story. We get better at recording. If you go back and listen to the Hand of God tracks versus these tracks, the clarity of the tracks and how everything, like, our process and abilities got better over the course of making the album, which makes sense, right? But also, I'm getting more tired, and so I'm quicker getting places, but I'm also not as just like, I'll beat this thing to death to try to get it somewhere that it's not, somewhere that's not going.
That's why I tell people, if you want to go listen to this album, listen to the whole thing.
Yeah, and I think it tells a story like that, right?
Yeah.
Not just in the concept, but also in the production of the record. The next album that's coming out, it's going to be called A Waste of Time, and it's kind of a prequel to this, to A Work Grotesque, and it goes through this era, but kind of more outward-facing music and kind of telling the stories of my relationships and stuff, right? And that's one of the things on that album that I really like, is those songs take place over the course of 15 years, and they go from single drunk me through my marriage to my divorce. And not only do you hear that progression in the story, but you also hear it in the maturity of the songwriting. Like, the songs get more mature and more, and I become more like worn in as a human being, and the ideas behind them, not just the way they're written, but the maturity of concept also gets stronger over the course of the record. I love the way that this album does that same thing. The album sort of matures as the character is going through these swings over the course of the night, and it all kind of lands right here at the end of a Work Grotesque, when all of that sort of comes back, as I mentioned before, back down to earth.
And like I told you, we took a trip to Asheville.
Yeah.
And
I was there. You didn't even have to tell me about it.
But like, we were driving home and listening to the album, it's like, this feels pretty good to just chill and listen to you
all the way through. So I was feeling pretty worn out by this point in time of the recording process. Pretty similar to how I'm feeling right now making this podcast, to be perfectly honest with everybody. This takes a lot out of a person. Like, it's not just the hour and a half that we put in doing the recordings. I probably spend 6 hours writing each episode, and then, at least twice the amount of time to listen to it to edit it. So
you
each episode's taking a lot.
Yeah, that's my job to go listen to it.
That's right. Nolin has to listen to it and make notes about what songs we talked about. It's also the talking about it, though, man. Like, we've gotten into some heavy stuff over the course of this podcast, and being that blunt and that open about heavy things is not a thing that really comes naturally to me. It's something I've worked on a lot over the years, and especially, considering my kids and how I try to be with them, and now I try to be that way with everybody. But it's not the easiest thing to do, and it does take a lot out of you. But anyway, those are just excuses for me being a slack ass. And on Monday, May the 6th, instead of working the night before like I usually do, I didn't do anything until I started recording on my lunch break at work, when I realized that I could not, in an hour, record a guitar track, a drum track, and a vocal track. I just took the rest of the afternoon off. So yeah, I got plenty of PTO. It's all right. So I started with the electric guitar. I kind of had a back and forth with a lot of this record, but this song in particular, like whether it should be electric or acoustic guitar. I think I'd played acoustic guitar on this song for the majority of the times that I played it. Once again, I'm a 90% acoustic guy anyway through the years. So, but much like Water Finds Its Way, the electric adds like a texture to it, that more like open picking pattern. Like, it lets the notes sing a little bit more. There's more sustain that's there. I really leaned into the Ledges reverb pedal from Earthquaker, which I just recently got, and this is the song where I sort of defined what is now what I call my spacey tone. So the setting's still on my Earthquaker pedal for this particular reverb for these particular songs. So here's the guitar in isolation. there's a nice like ringiness to the guitar, but there's also a little dirtiness in there.
Yeah.
We talked about this. I think it was the Water Finds Its Way episode about how like guitar amps work, and that sort of dirty, crunchy sound comes through pushing more sound through just in very basic terms. It comes from pushing more sound through the speaker than it wants to take, and that makes it distort. And there's a volume point. And so when you set your amp up, or when I set my amp up, I try to find that breaking point. And I'd like to be able to play quietly underneath it where everything is really clean, and then be able to play harder and get that dirtiness and that breakup. And so when Water Finds Its Way, I just pegged the volume of the amp out completely and then played as soft as I possibly could. And kept that really clean sound. On this one, I'm letting it break up just a little bit in that picking pattern, and thinking on it now like it's representative of the song, right?
Yeah.
You got a little bit of dirtiness and a little bit of sweetness.
So
right?
you picked on the electric.
I did, yeah. Finger picked it on the electric. That was the same lunch break. Also recorded the drum part. So I used the trusty wooden filing cabinet and a box of thumbtacks to come up with this. So, very complex rhythmically.
Yeah.
I obviously took some classes or something to come up with that drum line. Like it was out there. I did get better at recording it, and I think it really stands out over the course of this record and the different times that I used that particular setup. Like that one, I don't know. It may not be a good thing in the context of the song, right? Like it sounds more like a filing cabinet and a box of thumbtacks. Like it's more clear, more present, I guess. I don't know, like in the context of the song it doesn't sound that much, but like listening to that isolation, like you can tell 2-drawer wooden filing cabinet, box of thumbtacks. So earlier this week, my stepdad Doug asked me if he could borrow if I had a thumbtack, he could borrow some thumbtacks, and I gave him the box of thumbtacks, and I was like, look man, like you need to be careful with this deserves to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame one day. You can use one, but if we lose too many thumbtacks, it's just not going to have
sound,
that's
man.
right, it's not going to be authentic to the record. So later on that day, Nolin and Porkchop came over, and y'all knocked y'all's parts out in a hurry too. There was nothing really to note about it. It was just like Porkchop and Nolin knocked out their parts. The biggest thing with Chop, though, it was dialing it in on the electric bass. So obviously you've listened to several recordings of the song. Traditionally, you did play this on the upright.
Yeah.
And for a long time there, you'd sort of developed this sort of sliding sound, which doesn't work the same way on an instrument that has frets.
Right.
All right. Well, you can listen to it. You're doing your damnedest to make the sliding sound.
Yeah, I'm
but
trying.
It's just not going to work the same way on an electric as it does on an acoustic because of those frets. And it changes, I think it changes the feel of the song, but in the context of the record, I think it's a better fit than it would have been with that upright sliding around.
Yeah.
And just like with the electric guitar, like using that electric bass, it adds a thickness and it adds a texture to the song and an airiness that I think works really well.
Chop has a lot more soul in him than you would realize.
As for a bluegrass guy. Yeah, man. He soaks things up through osmosis. You revealed to us in the podcast that you don't practice, you just like think about music all the time. But,
Yeah.
You also have a knack for, you're really good at like hearing a thing and then being able to just pull that thing out of your ass at some point in time, right? Like that is a thing that I'd see you do it. You'll be talking about a song and then you'll just like pull the guitar out and play through that song. I'm not very good at that. And especially like hearing the individual parts and stuff. My brain doesn't work quite that same way. And so, like, you do have the ability to pull that off. And I think just the sheer amount of different styles of music that you listen to, you're not as weird as I am, but you're very broad.
Yeah.
Physically and
Well, that's,
and as far as your music.
That's because I've absorbed all this stuff over the years. I mean, it's inside of me. I'm like a large sponge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Didn't you say you want to be a history teacher?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
me too, man.
Yeah,
I had a great history teacher when I was in college, Mr. Saunders, Professor Saunders. And he would just stand at the front of the class and tell stories, and he had like little slideshows. And I was like, man, I could do this. I could do that for the rest of my life.
Oh yeah.
If anybody's listening to this, follow Chop's page. He's like a Snapple.
Like fun facts every time you open it up.
Yeah, he does like history of love and birthdays, celebrity birthdays, stuff like that. And
yeah, I like that kind of stuff. It's not just history like world history or U.S. history, but the history of music and things like that. And since I'm not a history teacher, that's kind of the closest thing I can get to it. And so that's my little knowledge I share with folks.
Well, it's much appreciated. I always enjoy the nugget of wisdom each day.
I made up all of those, by the way.
That's nice.
Unless it's a direct quote.
He's usually lying.
And when it was a direct quote, you made up the quotation marks.
Yeah,
so that still counts.
Yeah.
You found it and delivered it to us.
That's right.
Don't trust him.
So the day after we did these recordings, so after we pretty much recorded all this in one day, right?
Yeah.
We recorded the guitar, the drums, the bass, and the sax all over the course of a single day. I redid the vocals later. The very next day, the reason we did it on a Monday instead of a Tuesday was the very next day I went and saw Neil Young and Crazy Horse in concert in Atlanta. And I didn't do any mixes of this song until after that show. And this mix was obviously more influenced by the David Briggs, Neil Young era records that are some of my favorite records that anybody's ever made in history. I listened to a ton of those records leading up to the show and coming back from the show, and then seeing Neil live, and he's like all-time favorite artist, right up there with Tom Waits, and it had a major effect on me. And the sound that David Briggs gets on the albums that he worked with Neil Young on is, to me, just perfect production. Like, it sounds so much like The Room and so much like musicians playing together in the room. And there's a spook to it, like a darkness, like a hauntedness to those albums. And that was obviously, like, I think the fact that this song was so road worn already, and it gives it a more live feel, it just lent itself for leaning more towards that production. And I'm sure anybody that has listened to the podcast all the way to this point, they say, well, I feel like I've heard this story before, and that's because you have. I started out wanting a Neil Young sound. Like, that was what we went for when we originally started. And then at some point, about the time we were going through Night Terrors and doing all kinds of weird stuff, it became more of a Tom Waits sound. And it got much more, like, produced in that way. And some of that, like, liveness taken out of the mixes. And this is the swing back in the other direction. So the whole time we're making this record, I'm mixing. I did dozens of mixes of all of these songs in different ways to try to get the right sound, listening to them in context, listening to them in here on studio speakers, on headphones, on the big speakers in here, listening to them in the car, the little Bluetooth speaker, anywhere I could listen to see how it was sounding in these different contexts. And so now we're getting towards the end of the record, and this is sort of the pendulum swing back towards the middle, somewhere between that Neil Young thing and that Tom Waits or Beatles thing, I guess. And that's where we found the final style, of the mixing of the record. The week after this, we worked on Pegasus recordings, which ended up almost all of it being scrapped except for Nolin's saxophone. And we'll talk about that in the next episode. But my notes end after the Pegasus recording. So that was the last notes that I took about this entire process, other than just mentioning I had decided to re-record the vocals. So after the Pegasus recordings, we take an extended break. We don't work on this at all. The three of us move on towards working on playing gigs and working on the Christmas EP and stuff like that. And I took a break, too, from the whole recording process. But somewhere during this break, I recorded a keyboard track. I don't remember. I have no notes on it. But at some point, I decided, for whatever reason, because there's no keyboard on the rest of the record, that I was going to record a keyboard track for the song. I am also not a keyboard player. I would say that Nolin is also not a keyboard player, yet is a better keyboard player than I am.
I'd argue.
I can turn it on.
So my thing is, like, I understand how it works, right? my fingers don't do what they're supposed to do, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's a bit of a struggle. So what I worked out was a mix between the bass and the guitar, right? So I'm kind of taking the notes that the bass is picking and the notes that the guitar is picking. The bassier notes I'm playing with my left hand, and the treblier notes I'm playing with my right hand, like the obvious way that you would play a piano. But I couldn't play it. Like, I couldn't just sit down and play the bass notes with my left hand and the trebly notes with my right hand. So I recorded it as 2 separate tracks. I did a left-hand track, and then I did a right-hand track. And then I mixed those 2 together to get one part that sounds like... It took me all this work to get one part that sounds like a guitar player playing the keyboards. So here it is. Yeah, that's a cool electric piano sound. I don't know what I should have written down, like the setting or something, but I think it's supposed to sound kind of like a Fender Rhodes or something.
Yeah.
Like you
To
can
me,
still
I was telling you about a vibraphone.
a vibraphone. Like that's what I was going to say is you can hear there's a part of the tone that is the hammer hitting a string or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then there's a part of the tone that's the reverb that's behind there, but you can hear both pieces of that. You can hear both pieces of that independently in the tone of the keyboard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think it works really well in the context of the song. Like, it's barely audible in the final mix of the tune. As a matter of fact, I would imagine a lot of people have listened to that and had no idea that there's a keyboard on there at all.
I'm one of them.
And
Me also.
oh, well, that's good. That was intentional, like, and not because it's bad. But really, it's only there for texture, right?
Yeah,
like, it's only there, like, so much of the thought of this song and what's being done on the guitar and what's being done on the bass and what's being done on the keyboard is about the space between the notes and not the notes. Like, how are those instruments ringing? How are those instruments singing and filling up those gaps and filling up the space, adding a backdrop, a palette, you know, like an underlying color to the song itself. Still building on that metaphor.
Yeah. Mr. Bob Ross.
It's kind of weird, like, to me, in my head, it's weird to introduce an instrument this late in the record. I'm sure most people don't care about that sort of thing at all, or it wouldn't even be obvious to anybody that was listening to it. It's kind of like the hang-up that I had with introducing the sax halfway through The Setting Sun.
Yeah.
Just logically in my head, I'm like, that doesn't make any sense, even though in practice it works incredibly well. Since each instrument on this album, though, kind of has its own particular representation, it does stand out a little bit in my head, you know, even now. But in my, like, to me, like, the way that I've retconned this to work into the concept is it's like the sound of the world, like, waking up or about to wake up, sort of like that heavy quiet right before dawn, right? Like, I don't know, man. Maybe all that's bullshit. I have no idea. There's only 2 instruments on the whole album that make it like a single appearance, right? The trumpet and the keyboard.
Yeah.
The harmonica is only on there twice, but that was a thematic choice, right? Like, that was us thinking about the trumpet and the keyboard have nothing to do with anything thematically. They just sounded good on those particular songs, and that's why we did it. I can't even wiggle away to make it sound like those instruments actually work into some sort of concept that we came up with. One thing we did come up in the studio, though, was the end of the song. I don't know. I don't have notes on this, and I don't know if y'all have a particular memory, but
I'm pretty sure I do.
Traditionally, we just held that last D minor chord and just played it over and over until we ended on that chord. Like, we didn't let it change at the very end, and I did the gasp.
Yeah.
But something about the drums maybe, like, triggered something. I don't know. Like, it's the heartbeat bass line, right? Like, I don't know where that came from.
Is this the song that I hit that very high weird note and you were just like, keep it?
Yeah, that's if my memory serves me correct. We were all talking, and we said since it's your last breath, it should be like a heart monitor going flat, going flatline.
Just in conversation, like we didn't stumble across that or anything.
No, I think we just and then we asked Nolin, can you play a sound that sounds like a flatline on a heart monitor? And,
that's right.
Yeah.
Huh? How about that? I don't know if I got a clip of that. Maybe we should have discussed this before the podcast, and I could have put something in there.
It's just the F sharp.
All right. So everybody, just imagine an F sharp doing a flat line at the very end of the song. I wonder though, because I recorded the drums and I recorded the guitar and the vocals before you guys came in, right? Like earlier in that day. And at the end of the song, the drums do change. It goes from playing the full beat to playing like a single beat. That's why I was thinking maybe that led to it somehow, is because the drums change. But we don't all change what we're doing at the same time. The drums change, and then a little bit later the bass changes, and then everything finally works its way around there to the end.
When we played the song live, when you hit that lyric, the final breath, I always just kind of as much as I could into
on the sax.
Yeah,
that's cool. All right, so whatever. We did the heartbeat bass line at the end. I kind of mimed it on the keys. This is what it sounds like. I think I took the sax out of this so you could hear the backing instruments better. I wish I'd left it in now, and we would know the answer to whether or not that last note actually stayed in the song. We won't know that until we listen to the whole song in just a few minutes. But right now, here's the ending without the sax. When we draw our final breath, our life's work is sealed with death. A masterpiece of work grotesque. When we draw our final breath.
I have something to say about that.
Okay.
You know, at the very end, you're going between two notes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, like, I don't know which one to resolve with.
Uh-huh.
So I just played which one I thought would sound better.
Uh-huh.
And that's where I think the whole flatline idea came from.
Okay.
So I was like, I'm going to play something ugly. But it's going to fit.
And that's what spurred it?
Yeah.
I believe it. I love the way that it hits right underneath breath too. Like the whole song has been the exact same pattern throughout, right? It's been very smooth and it hasn't really changed. Right up to when I sing the line breath and then everything hits on that bump, bump.
Yeah.
Like right after that. I think it's really cool. I love the ending of that song. It feels like that kind of like that final moment, like when you get up in the morning and you're laying in the bed and like you sort of half asleep and half awake, and you know, like in that moment, like you either have to start moving or go back to sleep and just screw everything because you're not going to come back.
I know
from
that
it, right?
I know that pretty well.
Yeah, that just like, all right, fine. Right?
Yeah.
That's how I approach every day. All right, fine, whatever. After the final recordings, we did take a bit of time off, as mentioned before. I did not listen to the recordings at all. We played a few gigs. We practiced together. I had vacation in there. Plenty of stuff to keep me busy, but I did not. I didn't listen to this. I didn't touch it. Recording pretty much ran from the beginning of February to the end of May. February, March, April, May. So 4 months of us coming in here every week to record, pretty much. A few weeks missed here or there. One of you guys didn't come or something. But for the most part, for however many months I just said, every single week we're in here working on it. But in between, I was doing the guitar and the vocals for other recordings too, right? And then overdubs after you guys left, and then consistently mixing and testing different mixes and trying different things out. I probably worked for those 4 months like at least 20 hours a week, right? Like,
Yeah.
in addition to my full-time regular job and my dad job. And like it did take, like, it was a lot. I loved every minute of it. Like, as far as a challenge and just me being in my element, like, me being in my element, me being happy, I don't know, like, I'm not really good with that word and exactly where it goes or how to use it. But being fulfilled with my time, like, I'm in here cussing and, like, mad at what's happening and, like, trying different stuff out. And, like, I'm not like a smiling idiot just in pure joy while I'm editing a song or whatever. Like, it's tough and it's a challenge.
Yeah, man.
But at the same time, like, I eat it up. And my problem's the opposite. Like, when I get started on it, I don't want to stop. And so, like, it's tough for me. There's so many times I'm sitting here and it's like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, man, I got to get up. And, like, you know, I love my job. I got a good job. I got no complaints about my job, especially compared to every other job that I've ever had. But there's so many times where I'm feeling like I'm in a moment and I'm like, I have to go to bed to get up tomorrow to do the thing that lets me eat. I can't do the thing that I feel like I'm best at and get the fulfillment from. And like, I can't, that's a thing, you know, that's the side. And I know everybody feels that way, you know, about any of the things that they enjoy. I feel that way about hiking and stuff like that too. But this is a whole different, like, I'm working. Like, it's not like I'm having a fun day and I don't want vacation to end. It's like I'm working, I'm sweating, I'm building up sweat equity, I'm sharpening my skills. I'm getting fulfilled in a way that I want to get fulfilled from a job. But I have to quit doing that so I can get up and I can go do my job. I don't know. That's griping, and I'm sure everybody hates getting up and going and doing their job. But that is definitely a thing that, like, hit me over and over and over when I'm going through this process. It's just like, I would work all the time if I could do this.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it feels
I would
different.
too. And, like, I'm the same way. It's like, hey, Nolin, come in, play the sax line for me.
Right?
Yeah, I'll do it all day, every day.
Maybe we need to build a, you know, like a Fame Studios, a Muscle Shoals sound.
Yeah, man.
We can
I
be
got
their
you.
backing band.
The Portman Shoals.
The Portman. Portman Shoals Studios. The Portman Shoals sound, baby.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that so much.
We'll have to start together, and then we'll have to. I'll create a competing.
Yeah, that's right.
We start beefing.
Liberty Highway, is that what it'd be?
Well,
Liberty Highway Studios?
it would
Can't be Jackson Highway.
Homeland Park Studios.
Nobody has any idea what we're talking about. So anyway,
But if you do, you do.
that Muscle Shoals sound, folks, go. There's a nice documentary on it out
Oh
there.
God,
right?
yeah, that's one of my favorite. I'll definitely tag it.
You want to talk about like a major, just like love and influence, and just man, that music is. You were talking about that earlier with kind of the early rock and roll and like how that makes you feel.
Yeah.
When I listen to music that came out of Muscle Shoals, like it gives me a feeling of comfort, unlike just about any other style of music. Like there's just
magic,
something about it.
There's magic in that water.
So anyway, to keep complaining about me recording in my bedroom, or my shed, I should say. Even before like working on all this, I did all the demos and presented them to the band, and then we worked through and like taught an entire band to play the songs and play gigs. I think I was putting in time outside of our regular weekly practice days working on the record. It was probably more like a year and a half, which was my post divorce time, right? And so that was like, it was the thing that dominated the time that was now my new spare time that I didn't have previously before, leading up to that, leading up and through that year and a half, and kept me out of an insane amount of trouble during that time as well, right? Giving me and building my confidence back up, like giving me a thing to do that I was continuously surprised at how good it was. The whole recording process, it was like, man, that actually sounds pretty good. Man, that sounds pretty good. Man, like it was always a surprise at like how it was turning out and that it was working that way. And that boost of confidence at a time where I had zero. I don't know any other way. I'm so thankful for it. I don't even know how to express it.
It's same for me. Like, when you take a long time off not playing saxophone, your chops go away.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, it takes a long time to get that back. And then it's different chops in a recording studio too, right?
Yeah.
Like it's different skills that you're using to sit down and nail a track that still has soul, but at the same time is clean enough to be able to listen to it over and over and not hate yourself. A live setting, you don't feel like you just let it fly. It doesn't matter what it is. As long as it feels good in that moment, it really doesn't it doesn't matter because you're not going to go back and nitpick it other than, you know, if you bomb it and you'll remember those moments for the rest of your life.
Yeah,
But,
like I told you in the, you know, the other Prometheus or, you know, the other podcast, that's my job.
right?
I get one take. And so, like, you get mad or jealous of, you know, me doing it fast. That's my job.
Yeah, knock it out. Well, I will say I have multiple instruments that I have to continuously keep honed. So 3 to be exact. 3. Not simultaneously. 2 simultaneous is max for me. I do tap my foot from time to time. Anyway, whatever. Back to the point at hand. I took off from June through October completely. Didn't do anything with any of this at all. Didn't listen to the recordings. Tried my best not to think about them in any way. When I went back and I listened again, that's when I decided I needed to re-record the vocals. This was in October. And I was like, all right, I'm going to redo all of the vocals for everything that we've done up to this point. This is also when we had the talk about cutting several instruments from the tracks and things like that. But I really kind of got a fresh start in October on the stuff that we already had there, and it allowed me to be producer, mixer, and master instead of being stuck in the creative space that I'd been in before that. I think that was a huge lesson learned. It's like I really had to step away from creative space, refresh my ears, and then be able to attack it with a different job and a different part of my brain. I recut all the vocals. We made a Christmas EP right around then. Between October 4th and Thanksgiving, I recut all the vocals for this album, and then we made an entire Christmas EP that we released at Thanksgiving. And then from Thanksgiving to Christmas, I worked on the final mixes for Night Terrors. And I kind of used a Work Grotesque as a template to bring some of the other songs back to earth with those mixes, like I talked about earlier with Neil Young and Tom Waits and that swing back. So that leads us up to Christmas, and then Christmas is when I finally had it all finished, and we set it for release in January. And this is what you got. So this is the final recording, the final master from Night Terrors, the debut album from Fall Down Trees, a Work Grotesque.
Lessons learned determine shape. A canvas white or make made. Take the brush in our hand. Some begin while some will plan. No tools to scrape or wash or sand. We'll take the brush in our hand. A stroke of love, then one of hate. A stroke of luck, then one of fate. A stroke to blend, then one to cake. A stroke of love, then one hate. It's terrifying, all the same. Better set in stone than wet with paint. Boldest of our strokes of pride. Those we try so hard to hide. Patch of envy, hunter green, a base of black
Grotesque from Night Terrors, the debut album from Fall Down Trees. And I guess you did hit that flatline note there at the end. Carries through over the top of the heartbeats coming from the bass.
Yeah.
I think the vocals are stronger there than I remembered them being, really, like listening back through the good headphones and everything. I'm pretty proud of that vocal take. And that is one of those, I know I talked a lot about.
That's the catchiest vocal line that you did.
You think so?
Yeah, from my opinion.
Yeah, like, obviously writing different melodies and stuff, like growing as a songwriter. But also, like, growing as a singer and being able to sing a melody that I was writing like that. And I think that song's very much written for my voice. Like, it works for the way that I sing. And it's probably one of the first examples of that, where I wrote a song that made me a better singer. Yeah. Instead of me struggling to try to sing the song that I wrote a song that worked with my range and my style. And
then Chop has to wonder what key we're in.
I'll say this, that as far as the lyrics go, I know you said that you were worried about it being a pretentious song earlier. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I've always thought, since you introduced this way back when you were just doing it kind of as a solo, when you and I were a duo and you would do this solo, I thought it was another word that I would describe, and not to blow smoke here, but I think it's profound. I think there's a thin line between pretentiousness and profound. I think it's profound because, and there's something about I know most people don't listen to music this way, but I look for, a lot of people don't write music this way, but there's something very artistic about the music continually going. It never stops. You have those few chord changes until the end, signifying death. I think that's probably one of the best artistic things that you've ever done. And I think the words are profound. And I think it's something too, if people really listen to the lyrics, I think that and no matter which socioeconomic level you're on, no matter where you're at, where you live, what your beliefs are, anything, I think everybody can identify with that. I mean, it hits you in the heart,
Well, I would hope so, and I really appreciate that. Those are kind words. We write a lot of songs, and we put these little build these little jokes and stuff into them, right? We've talked about it with several of the tunes over the course of the record, how there'll be like a little times change, water finds its way, and we change the time signature of the song, like these little jokes that we bury in there. But this is one where it's not a joke. Like, it adds to the drama. It adds to the drama of the song. It's almost like we've done that thing that it's the same principle, like it's the same thought that we're putting in there, but it's a different part of our personality. It's a very sincere part of the personality.
Yeah.
And I do think it helps paint the picture of that we're trying to paint. You just can't avoid that metaphor. No, like it stands there and stares you in the face. Thanks for listening to the Does It Make a Sound podcast. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with episode 10, Pegasus, where we'll wrap up the season by deep diving the final song on the album. We'll have a couple of special guests here with us, and I'll brush off my Latin Club credentials as we philosophize on the true meaning of the phrase ad astra per alis porci. In the meantime, please like, subscribe, and review the show on your favorite podcasting platform. Stay up to date with Does It Make a Sound and Fall Down Trees by following Fall Down Trees on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Links are in the description of the podcast. As independent artists, we need patrons to spread the word about our work. So if you find value in our music or this podcast, please share it with your friends on your social channels too. We're not trying to take all your money, though we will take a small portion of it. 10% a week if you don't mind. We're not asking you for anything, really. Just hit the share button. Let people know about it if you appreciate it, and let them know why you appreciate it. We're a grassroots band. We're a tree roots band, and that's the only way we'll get the word out there.
I'm stumped.
Does It Make a Sound and Fall Down Trees are proud partners with Guttersville Records, a collective of independent artists working together to be heard in a noisy digital space. So please like and subscribe to the Guttersville channels too. Make sure to listen to all of the music coming out of our little indie label. go listen to the other episodes of Does It Make a Sound if you haven't already, and stream Night Terrors on your favorite platform, available everywhere. Thanks for listening and for all of your support. For Porkchop Branch and Nolin McAlister, I'm Dustin Owens.
Timber!